The human warship Teguk dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Villani home system. Admiral Wu Jin stood on the bridge, watching the tactical displays light up with enemy contacts. What he saw made his blood run cold. Hundreds of black Krotak ships surrounded HFY like a swarm of angry insects. The beautiful crystal cities on the planet's surface were already burning. Streams of red energy poured down from the alien fleet, turning the singing gardens into ash, and melting the silver towers into puddles of metal. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Hana at the communications station, "I'm receiving multiple distress signals from the planet. The Villani are broadcasting on all frequencies, begging for someone to help them." Captain Dae-hyun studied the enemy formation through his binoculars. The Krotak ships were ugly things, all sharp angles and weapon ports. They moved like predators, circling their prey before striking. "Admiral, we count 300 enemy vessels. We have one ship." Admiral Wu Jin nodded grimly. "I can see that, Captain. But we didn't come this far to run away." He turned to the bridge crew. "All hands battle stations. Prepare for combat." Dr. So-min rushed onto the bridge, her face pale with worry. "Admiral, I've been monitoring Villani communications. They're not just under attack. They're being hunted. The Krotak are targeting civilian shelters, schools, hospitals. They're trying to kill every living thing on that planet." "Then we stop them," the Admiral said simply. Commander Hyun Woo, the ship's fighter squadron leader, appeared on the main screen from the launch bay. "Sir, all fighters are ready. 12 ships armed with nuclear missiles and kinetic rounds. The pilots are volunteers from the Mars Defense Corps." The Admiral opened a communication channel to the Krotak fleet. He broadcast in 17 different languages, including the few Krotak words that Earth's computers had learned from intercepted transmissions. "This is Admiral Wu Jin of the Earth vessel Teguk. You are attacking a peaceful world. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came back in broken but understandable human language. "Die, weaklings. Your ship will burn like the crystal cities. The Krotak take everything. You give us nothing but target practice." So-min watched the tactical screen in horror as several Krotak ships broke off from the planet bombardment and began moving toward the human ship. Each enemy vessel was 3 times the size of the Teguk and bristled with weapons. "Admiral," she said quietly, "maybe we should retreat and call for reinforcements." Wu Jin smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Doctor, you're thinking like a civilized person. The Krotak aren't civilized. They're predators, and there's only one way to deal with predators." He activated the ship-wide communications system. "All hands, this is the Admiral. We came here to help the Villani, and that's exactly what we're going to do. The enemy thinks we're weak because we only have one ship. They're about to learn why that was a mistake. Show them what humans can do." The first wave of Krotak ships opened fire with massive energy beams that could melt through a mountain. The Teguk's shields flared as the weapons struck, but the human ship kept moving forward. "Launch fighters," the Admiral ordered. Commander Hyun Woo led his squadron out of the launch bay like bullets fired from a gun. The human fighters were small and fast, designed for hit-and-run attacks, but instead of dancing around the enemy, fire like the Villani expected, the human pilots did something that shocked everyone watching. They charged straight into the enemy formation. Lieutenant Yoon-ji's fighter took a direct hit from a Krotak beam weapon. Her ship's armor melted and her shields failed, but she kept flying. With her fighter burning around her, she aimed directly at the nearest enemy cruiser and fired every missile she had. The nuclear warheads struck the Krotak ship's hull and detonated in a chain of brilliant explosions. The enemy vessel broke apart like a toy, its pieces spinning away into space. "Yunji, report!" Hyunwoo called over the radio. Her voice came back, calm despite the fire spreading through her cockpit. "Fighter, damaged but operational, sir. Moving to engage next target." On the surface of HFY, the gentle aliens watched the battle through their crystal viewing devices. They had expected their rescuers to fight with elegant energy weapons and graceful tactics, like something from their peaceful stories. Instead, they saw humans using crude but effective weapons, nuclear missiles that turned space into miniature suns, kinetic rounds that punched through armor like bullets through paper, and most shocking of all, human fighters that seemed willing to ram enemy ships if that's what it took to win. Zephyros, the chief scientist of HFY, stood in his laboratory watching the space battle with growing horror and amazement. "They fight like the ancient predators from our fossil records," he whispered to his assistant. "No grace, no elegance, just pure violence." The Taeguk itself joined the fight, its massive railguns firing solid metal slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. When the projectiles hit Krotak ships, they didn't just damage them, they completely destroyed them. Entire enemy vessels simply vanished in clouds of debris, but the humans were vastly outnumbered. For every Krotak ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The enemy began concentrating their fire on the human fighters, and one by one, the small ships began to fall. Lieutenant Yunji's fighter finally gave up the fight. Her engines were dead, her weapons were empty, and fire was spreading through her life support systems. But she was still alive, and she still had one weapon left. "Commander," she radioed to Hyunwoo, "my ship is finished, but I can see the enemy. Flagship, it's the big one with all the communication arrays." Hyunwoo understood immediately. "Yunji, no. We can find another way." "Sir, with respect, there is no other way." Her voice was steady, almost peaceful. "Tell my family I died protecting innocent people. That's a good death." She turned her dying fighter toward the massive Krotak command ship and pushed her damaged engines to maximum power. The enemy saw her coming and fired everything they had, but a single small target moving at maximum speed was hard to hit. Yunji's fighter struck the Krotak flagship just behind the bridge. The impact and explosion that followed sent shock waves through the enemy fleet. The command ship broke in half, its pieces tumbling away into the darkness. Suddenly, the coordinated Krotak attack began to fall apart. Without their flagship, the enemy ships started making mistakes, firing on each other and breaking formation. Admiral Wu Jin saw the opportunity and took it. "All remaining fighters concentrate fire on their communication ships. If we can blind them, we can beat them." The tide of battle slowly began to turn. The humans fought with a desperation and savagery that the Krotak had never encountered before. Every human ship that was destroyed took multiple enemies with it. Every human pilot who died made sure their death cost the enemy dearly. After 6 hours of brutal fighting, the surviving Krotak ships suddenly broke off their attack and retreated toward the outer system. Their dark vessels disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind the wreckage of nearly 100 destroyed ships. The space around HFY was littered with debris from both sides. Of the 12 human fighters that had launched, only 3 returned to the Taeguk. The human warship itself was heavily damaged, its armor scorched, and its shields offline. But they had won. Admiral Wu Jin opened a communication channel to the planet below. "This is Admiral Wu Jin to HFY. The immediate threat has been eliminated. We're reading massive damage to your cities. Do you require assistance?" The reply came from High Counselor Yella herself, her voice shaking with emotion. "Admiral, we cannot express our gratitude. You saved our world. Your people fought like nothing we have ever seen." Dr. So-min noticed something troubling in the counselor's voice. Gratitude, yes, but also fear. "Admiral," Wu Jin's tactical officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting movement in the outer system. The Krotak ships that retreated are regrouping, and, sir, there are a lot more of them out there." The Admiral's face grew grim. "How many more?" "At least 1,000 ships, sir. Maybe more. This was just the advance force." So-min felt her heart sink. They had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. And the Villani, who had called for help from advanced civilizations, were learning that their rescuers were not the peaceful, elegant beings they had expected. They were warriors, from a world where only the strong survived. The medical bay of the Taeguk was filled with wounded Villani civilians who had been evacuated from the burning cities below. Dr. Jun Seo, the ship's chief medical officer, moved between the beds with growing confusion and concern. Nothing in his 20 years of military medicine had prepared him for patients like these. A young Villani male named Kalen lay on one of the medical beds, his pale blue skin even paler than usual. He had been injured when debris from a destroyed building fell near him. The wound was barely a scratch by human standards, just a small cut on his arm that would heal in a few days with basic treatment. But Kalen was screaming. "Please," he begged, tears streaming down his face. "Make it stop. The burning, the terrible burning sensation." Jun Seo checked his medical scanner again. The readings showed no significant injury, no infection, no reason for such extreme distress. He had given the alien enough pain medication to knock out a human soldier, but it seemed to have no effect. Dr. So-min entered the medical bay and saw Jun Seo's troubled expression. "What's wrong? Are the injuries more serious than we thought?" "That's just it," Jun Seo replied quietly. "The injuries are minor. This patient has what we would call a small cut. But look at him. He's in agony." So-min approached Kalen's bed and spoke gently in his language. "Can you describe what you're feeling?" "It's like fire," Kalen gasped. "Like liquid metal flowing through my body. How do you bear such torture? How does any living thing survive such pain?" So-min's eyes widened with understanding. She pulled Jun Seo aside and spoke in a whisper. "Doctor, I don't think they feel pain the way we do. According to my research, the Villani evolved on worlds with no predators, no natural disasters, no violence of any kind. Their nervous systems developed to register only gentle sensations." "You mean they've never experienced real pain before?" Jun Seo asked in disbelief. "Think about it. No wars, no accidents, no need to push through injury to survive. A paper cut to them might feel like a stab wound to us." Across the medical bay, other human crew members were having their own disturbing encounters with Villani culture. Engineer Dayun was working with a team of Villani technicians to repair the damaged crystal towers on the planet's surface. She had offered to help them understand human construction techniques. The Villani engineer, Silas, watched in horror as Da-un casually picked up a piece of radioactive metal with her bare hands to move it out of the way. "Stop!" Silas cried out. "That material will kill you in seconds." Da-un looked at the metal, then at her radiation detector. "This? It's only putting out about 50 rads per hour. That's nothing. I worked on the Jupiter mining stations for 3 years. Those had radiation levels 10 times higher than this. Silas stared at her in shock. But how are you still alive? Our safety protocols require full protective suits for anything over 1 rad per hour. Humans are pretty tough, Da-Yun said with a shrug. We evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. Radiation, toxic chemicals, extreme temperatures, disease, predators. You learn to deal with it or you die. She showed him her portable toolkit, pointing out various items. This cutting torch reaches temperatures of over 3,000 degrees. This chemical solvent would dissolve most organic materials in minutes. This impact driver hits with enough force to break bones. All standard equipment for basic construction work. The Villani engineer backed away slowly. To him, Da-Un's toolkit looked like a collection of torture devices. Meanwhile, in the planet's capital city, Sergeant Min-Ho was attempting to train Villani civilians in basic self-defense. The session was not going well. The key to survival in a fight, Min-Ho explained, to a group of 20 Villani adults, is to react quickly and decisively. When someone attacks you, you have to be ready to hurt them before they hurt you. The Villani stared at him with expressions of complete confusion. One of them, a teacher named Lyrian, raised her hand hesitantly. Sergeant Min-Ho, she said carefully, we don't understand this concept of hurting another being intentionally. Could you explain how that works? Min-Ho blinked in surprise. How that works? Well, if someone tries to grab you, you hit them, you kick them, you use whatever you can to make them stop. But, Lyrian continued, why would we want to cause pain to another living creature? Isn't that wrong? The other humans in the room exchanged glances. Captain Dae-hyun, who was observing the training, stepped forward. Let me try a different approach, he said. What do you do on your world when 2 people disagree about something important? We discuss it, replied another Villani. We find a solution that makes everyone happy. Sometimes it takes days or weeks of talking, but there's always a peaceful answer. And if someone takes something that belongs to you? Take something? The Villani looked genuinely confused. Why would anyone take something? If they needed it, they would ask. We would share. Min-Ho realized the problem. These people had never experienced violence, theft, or even serious conflict. They literally could not understand the concept of one being deliberately harming another. He tried a simple demonstration, asking for a volunteer to practice a basic defensive move. A young Villani named Oren stepped forward. Min-Ho showed him how to block an incoming attack and push the attacker away. But when Oren tried to perform the move, even in slow motion against an imaginary opponent, he began to shake and cry. I can't, he sobbed. Even pretending to hurt someone makes me feel sick. It's wrong. It's against everything we are. Dr. So-min, who had been documenting these encounters, compiled her findings in a report for Admiral Wu Jin. She found him on the bridge, staring out at the stars where long-range sensors were detecting the approach of the main Krotak fleet. Admiral, she said, we have a serious problem. It's not just that the Villani are peaceful. They are literally incapable of violence. Their entire species has evolved without any natural aggression or survival instincts. Wu Jin read through her report, his expression growing more troubled with each page. So they can't fight, they can't handle pain, and they can't even imagine hurting someone else. It's worse than that, So-min continued. Some of them are starting to understand what humans are really like, and it's terrifying them. They're grateful we saved them, but they're also beginning to realize that we're just as dangerous as the Krotak in our own way. On the planet below, this realization was spreading through Volani society like a slow poison. In the rebuilt crystal, Hall's Volani leaders debated what they had learned about their rescuers. "The humans saved us," said one counselor. "But have you seen their entertainment? They have stories about war, movies about killing, games where children pretend to shoot each other. They enjoy violence." Another added, "Their own history is nothing but war and destruction. They've fought each other for thousands of years. They've built weapons that can destroy entire planets. What kind of beings do that?" High Counselor Yella listened to the debates with a heavy heart. She had called for help from advanced civilizations, expecting to meet beings like themselves, only more technologically developed. Instead, they had been rescued by creatures from what could only be described as a world of nightmares. The humans were kind to them, helpful and protective, but they were also casual about things that would drive a Volani insane with horror. They carried weapons designed to kill, wore armor meant to protect them from violence, and spoke of death and destruction as normal parts of life. Zephyros, the chief scientist, had been studying human biology and culture. His report to the council painted a terrifying picture. "They evolved on what they call a class du tuive death world," he explained. "Their planet tried to kill them in every possible way. Ice ages that lasted for thousands of years. Diseases that wiped out half their population. Predators that hunted them. Natural disasters that destroyed their cities. And through all of this, they kept fighting, not just against nature, but against each other." "But why?" asked a counselor. "Why didn't they learn to live in peace?" "Because on their world," Zephyros said quietly, "peace meant death. Only the strong survived. Only those willing to fight could protect their families. Violence became their tool for survival." As night fell over SciFiPrime, the approaching Krotak fleet was now visible as tiny dots of light moving across the stars. Admiral Wu Jin estimated they had less than 48 hours before the main invasion force arrived. In the human ship's planning room, the officers were preparing for a battle they knew they could not win through conventional means. The Krotak were bringing thousands of ships against their single vessel, and whatever support the grateful but helpless Volani could provide. "We need to use every advantage we have," Admiral Wu Jin told his staff. "The Krotak think like predators, but they've never faced prey that fights back with equal savagery." Captain Dae-hyun studied the tactical maps. "The Volani have given us detailed information about their system. Every asteroid, every moon, every gas giant. We can use the environment against the enemy." "What do you have in mind?" the Admiral asked. Dae-hyun smiled, and it was the same unpleasant expression his Admiral had worn during the first battle. "Something the Krotak won't expect. Something no civilized species would ever consider." He began to outline a plan that would have horrified the Volani if they had understood it. The Krotak invasion fleet arrived at the edge of the Volani system like a dark storm cloud blocking out the stars. 10,000 black ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls bristling with weapons that had destroyed countless worlds. At the center of the fleet, the massive command ship Deathbringer led the advance, its captain eager to finish what they had started. War Master Gorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, his scarred face twisted into a cruel smile. The Krotak were 7 feet tall with gray skin like armor and red eyes that burned with permanent anger. They had conquered 3 galaxies and destroyed over 1,000,000 worlds. The small human ship that had interfered with their advance force was nothing more than an annoying insect. "Scan the system," Gorthak growled to his officers. "Find the human ship and destroy it. Then we finish burning this world." The sensor officer's report confused him. "War Master, we're detecting only debris in the inner system. Broken ships, scattered metal. The human vessel appears to be gone." Gorthak snarled in disappointment. "Cowards. They saved one world and ran away." He turned to his weapons officer. "Begin bombardment of the planet. Kill everything that moves." But as the Krotak fleet moved deeper into the system, things began to go wrong. The first sign of trouble came when the leading ships passed through what looked like empty space near the outer gas giant. Suddenly, dozens of hidden mines exploded around them. The devices had been buried in the planet's rings, invisible until it was too late. 3 Krotak. Destroyers vanished in brilliant flashes of nuclear fire. "Mines!" shouted the sensor officer. "The rings are full of them!" Before Gorthak could respond, more explosions erupted throughout his formation. The humans had spent the past 2 days seeding the entire system with hidden traps. Every asteroid, field, every moon, every piece of space debris had been turned into a weapon. Captain Sung Ho watched the enemy fleet from his hiding place behind the 4th planet's largest moon. His squadron of human fighters had been waiting here for hours, their ships powered down to avoid detection. "All pilots," he whispered into his radio, "remember the plan. Hit fast, hit hard, then disappear. We're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to hurt them." As the confused Krotak ships tried to reorganize after the mine attacks, Sung Ho's fighters emerged from behind the moon like bullets. They fired their missiles at the enemy's rear guard, then vanished back into the shadows before the Krotak could respond. Major Hyejin led another group of fighters that had been hiding in the corona of the system's star. The intense radiation would have killed most species instantly, but the humans had modified their ships with heavy shielding. "This is Hyejin," she reported to Admiral Wu Jin. "We're in position inside the star's atmosphere. The radiation is pretty bad, but we can handle it." "Good," came the Admiral's voice. "Wait for my signal." The Krotak fleet continued its advance, but every step forward cost them more ships. The humans had turned basic physics into a weapon. Asteroids that seemed harmless suddenly revealed hidden engines, sending huge rocks flying into enemy formations at devastating speeds. Gas clouds that looked natural turned out to be filled with explosive chemicals. War Master Gorthak realized he was fighting an enemy unlike any he had faced before. Most species fought with honor, meeting his ships in open battle. The humans fought like the universe itself had turned against him. "Find them!" he roared. "These cowards hide like vermin! Flush them out and crush them!" His wish was granted when the human warship Teguk suddenly appeared from behind the system's 2nd planet. Admiral Wu Jin had been waiting for the perfect moment, and now the main Krotak fleet was exactly where he wanted them. "All units," the Admiral broadcast, "execute Operation Deathworld." What happened next shocked even the battle-hardened Krotak. The humans didn't just attack. They turned the entire system into a killing field. Hidden human ships emerged from behind every planet and moon. Fighter squadrons appeared from asteroid caves and gas giant storms. Nuclear mines that had been drifting in space like harmless debris suddenly activated and flew toward enemy ships. But the most terrifying moment came when Major Hyejin's squadron erupted from the star itself. "This is Hyejin!" she shouted over the radio as her ships burst from the solar corona in trails of fire. "Coming in hot!" The Krotak couldn't believe what they were seeing. No sane species would hide ships inside a star. The radiation alone should have killed every human pilot instantly. But here they were, their ships glowing white-hot, firing missiles as they streaked across space. The psychological effect was devastating. The Krotak had always relied on fear to break their enemy's will to fight. But these humans seemed to fear nothing, not even death itself. Captain Sung-Ho's voice crackled over the communications channel as his fighters dove through a formation of enemy cruisers. Remember what they did to the Volani children? Make them pay for every burned city. The battle became a nightmare for the Krotak. Every time they tried to form up for a proper attack, human ships appeared from impossible hiding places. Fighters came at them from the blind spots of planets. Bombers emerged from nebula clouds. Even the space around them seemed to be fighting against them. Lieutenant Tae-ho had volunteered for the most dangerous mission of all. His fighter was loaded with the most powerful nuclear warhead the humans could build, and his target was the Krotak command ship. "Admiral," he radioed, "I have a clear shot at their flagship, but I'll have to get through their entire defensive screen." "Negative, Tae-ho," Admiral Wu Jin replied. "That's suicide. Find another way." "Sir, with respect, there is no other way. And anyway," Tae-ho's voice was calm, almost cheerful. "My grandfather always said the best way to win a fight is to make sure the other guy hurts more than you do." Before anyone could stop him, Tae-ho pushed his fighter to maximum speed and dove toward the massive enemy flagship. Krotak fighters swarmed around him, firing everything they had. His ship took hit after hit, pieces of armor flying off as his shields failed, but he kept flying. War Master Gorthak watched in growing horror as the human fighter approached his ship. He had seen kamikaze attacks before, but never from a pilot who seemed genuinely happy about dying. "All weapons! Target that fighter!" he screamed. The Deathbringer's defensive guns filled space with deadly energy, but Tae-ho's ship was small and fast. He weaved between the weapon beams like he was dancing, his fighter trailing fire and smoke. In the final seconds before impact, Tae-ho's voice came over all frequencies, speaking in broken Krotak language that he had learned just for this moment. "This is what happens when you attack our friends, monsters." The nuclear warhead detonated against the Deathbringer's hull with the force of a small star. The massive flagship split in half, its two pieces spinning away in opposite directions. War Master Gorthak's final thought was that he had underestimated these humans terribly. With their command ship destroyed, the Krotak fleet began to fall apart. Individual captains tried to retreat, but the humans had prepared for that too. Mines and hidden ships blocked every escape route. What had started as an invasion became a massacre. The few Krotak ships that managed to escape the system carried news that would spread terror throughout their empire. They had found a species that fought with the savagery of the ancient predators, but with technology and intelligence that matched their own. As the battle ended, space around SciFiPrime was filled with wreckage from thousands of destroyed ships. The human fleet, though heavily damaged, had won a victory that seemed impossible. Admiral Wu Jin stood on the bridge of the battered Taeguk, looking out at the debris field that had once been the mightiest invasion force in Krotak history. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "long-range sensors show Krotak ships throughout this sector are retreating. It looks like word of our victory is spreading." Dr. So-min joined the Admiral on the bridge, her face troubled despite their victory. "Admiral, I've been monitoring Volani communications. They're grateful for what we've done, but they're also terrified. They watched us turn their peaceful system into a battlefield. Some of them are calling us the burning demons from the Death Star." Admiral Wu Jin nodded sadly. I expected that. We saved them, but we also showed them what war really looks like. They'll never be truly innocent again. On the planet below, the Villani people emerged from their shelters to see the sky filled with falling stars, the burning wreckage of enemy ships. They were alive, their world was safe, but they had learned that safety sometimes came at a terrible price. High Counselor Yella stood in her reconstructed crystal tower, watching the human ships as they began repairs. She was grateful beyond words for their rescue, but she also understood that her people had been changed forever. They had called for help from advanced beings and received salvation from warriors who treated death as just another tool in their arsenal. The Krotak Empire would remember this day and speak in whispers of the humans who fought like living nightmares, turning entire star systems into weapons and sacrificing themselves with smiles on their faces. The Villani would remember it too, as the day their peaceful universe ended and they learned that sometimes the only thing more terrifying than your enemies is the allies who save you from them. 3 months after the great battle, SciFiPrime looked peaceful again from space. The crystal cities had been rebuilt, the singing gardens replanted, and the floating platforms restored to their former beauty. But for those who looked closely, something had changed forever. Dr. So-min walked through the rebuilt capital city, taking notes for her final report. The Villani had worked with incredible speed to repair their world, but the changes went far deeper than just new buildings. She could see it in their eyes, in the way they moved, in the quiet conversations that stopped when humans approached. They had lost their innocence. In the rebuilt central spire, High Counselor Yella met with the human delegation for what would be their final formal meeting. Admiral Wu Jin sat across from her, his uniform bearing new scars from the battle that had saved her world. Between them lay documents that would change both their civilizations forever. The Mutual Defense Treaty is ready for your signature, Admiral Wu Jin said quietly. Earth will maintain a permanent garrison here, and in exchange, your people will share their advanced technologies with us. Yella's long fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the signing device. Admiral, I must ask you something that has troubled our people for months. When you first came here, did you know what you were bringing with you? What do you mean, Counselor? War, she said simply. Violence. The knowledge that the universe is not the peaceful place we believed it to be. Did you know that saving us would change us forever? Admiral Wu Jin was quiet for a long moment. Counselor, my people have a saying. The price of peace is eternal vigilance. We knew that opening your eyes to the galaxy's dangers would hurt you, but the alternative was watching you die in ignorance. Yella signed the treaty, but her expression remained troubled. Some of our philosophers say you didn't save us from the Krotak. You saved us from ourselves, from the weakness that would have eventually killed us anyway. Dr. So-min had been conducting interviews with Villani citizens, trying to understand how their society was adapting to their new reality. The results were both fascinating and heartbreaking. In the rebuilt university, she met with Professor Kyrian, one of the younger Villani who had shown interest in human methods. Unlike the older generation, Kyrian seemed almost excited by the changes happening to his people. Dr. So-min, he said as they walked through halls filled with new types of students. Before you came, we believed the universe was fundamentally good. We thought all intelligent life would naturally choose peace and cooperation. We were children playing in a garden, unaware of the wolves outside the fence. Do you regret learning the truth? So-min asked. Kyrian paused at a window overlooking the city. Some days, yes, ignorance was much more comfortable. But Dr. So-min, we were dying and didn't even know it. Not just from the Krotak, but from our own weakness. A species that cannot defend itself is a species waiting for extinction. They passed by classrooms where young Villani were learning subjects. That would have been unthinkable before the human arrival. Strategic thinking, crisis management, basic engineering with dangerous materials, even theoretical courses on conflict resolution through strength rather than just diplomacy. But not all Villani were adapting well to their new reality. In the medical centers, Dr. Junseo worked with Villani doctors to treat what they called awareness, sickness. Thousands of Villani citizens had developed a condition where they could no longer function normally after learning about the violent nature of the galaxy. They understand now that pain and death and violence are real, Junseo explained to Dr. So-min during one of their meetings. But their minds aren't built to handle that knowledge. Some of them just sit and stare at nothing, thinking about all the terrible things that could happen. Others have panic attacks when they see anything that reminds them of conflict. One patient, an elderly Villani named Theron, had been a respected artist before the war. Now he spent his days painting the same image over and over. The human fighter ships emerging from the star's corona like burning angels of death. "I cannot stop seeing it," he told Dr. So-min when she interviewed him. "The beauty and the horror of it. Your people flew through fire that should have killed them, and they were smiling. How does a mind understand such creatures?" The cultural divide was becoming a serious problem. The older Villani, who remembered the time before humans, often struggled with depression and anxiety. The younger generation, like Kyrian, adapted more easily, but sometimes worried their elders by embracing concepts that had once been unthinkable. Captain Dae-hyun oversaw the construction of the permanent human base on SciFiPrime's largest moon. The facility was both a military installation and a cultural embassy, designed to help the two species understand each other better. But even there, the differences were stark. Sergeant Minho had finally given up on training Villani civilians in self-defense. Instead, he now worked with a small group of young Villani volunteers who wanted to learn human ways. Progress was slow and painful. The problem, he explained to Captain Dae-hyun, is that they're trying to learn violence from a peaceful starting point. It's like teaching someone to swim by throwing them in the ocean during a storm. His star student was a young Villani named Nira, who had lost her family when the Krotak first attacked. She was one of the few who could actually bring herself to strike back when threatened, but the effort left her physically sick each time. "Sergeant Min-ho," she said after a particularly difficult training session, "how do your people bear it? The knowledge that you might have to hurt someone? How do you sleep at night knowing you're capable of such things?" Min-ho had struggled to find an answer. "We tell ourselves it's necessary, that protecting the innocent sometimes requires becoming monsters ourselves. But honestly, Nira, most of us don't sleep very well either. The psychological impact worked, both ways. Many of the human crew members found themselves changed by their contact with the Villani. Living among people who had never known violence made some humans question their own nature. Commander Hyun-woo, who had led the fighter squadrons during the battle, now spent his free time in the Villani gardens, listening to the singing flowers, and trying to imagine what it would have been like to grow up without fear. "Dr. So-min," he said during one of their conversations, "do you think we're wrong? Are we the monsters in this story? We saved them, but we also destroyed their peaceful world just by being here." So-min didn't have easy answers. Commander, I think we're exactly what we've always been. Survivors from a harsh world who learned to fight because it was the only way to live. The question isn't whether we're monsters or heroes. The question is whether the galaxy is better or worse with us in it. As her time on HFY came to an end, Dr. Somin compiled her final report. It painted a complex picture of first contact between two radically different species. The Valani had been saved from extinction, but they had also been forced to confront the reality that the universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Some had broken under the weight of that knowledge. Others, like Kyrian and his students, were building a new kind of Valani civilization, one that could survive in a hostile galaxy. The humans had proven they could be protectors as well as warriors. But they had also learned that sometimes salvation came at a terrible price. Saving the innocent meant destroying their innocence. Admiral Wu Jin stood in his quarters aboard the Teguk, writing his own final report. Through his window, he could see HFY spinning slowly in the darkness, its crystal cities glowing with soft light. Final log entry, he dictated. The Valani called for help from advanced civilizations. They expected peaceful beings with elegant technology and refined methods. Instead, they got us, humans, Deathworlders who turned their star system into a battlefield and their peaceful existence into something harder and darker. He paused, watching a Valani transport ship pass by his window. Its design was already changing, becoming more robust, more practical. Less beautiful, but more likely to survive. Did we save them or damn them? I don't know. But I know this. They're alive, and they're learning to stay that way. The Krotak will think twice before attacking anyone under human protection. Word is spreading through this part of the galaxy about the species that fights like living nightmares and treats death as just another weapon. Maybe that's enough. Maybe being feared is the price of keeping your friends safe. The Valani will never again be the innocent, peaceful people they once were. But they'll be here tomorrow and the day after that and for all the days to come. In a universe full of predators, sometimes that's the best kind of victory you can ask for. On the planet below, High Counselor Yella stood in her crystal tower, looking up at the stars that no longer seemed as friendly as they once had. Her people were changed, possibly forever, but they were alive, and in the growing darkness between the stars, word was spreading among the galactic predators. Avoid the sector protected by the humans. Avoid the burning demons who emerge from stars and turn entire systems into weapons. Avoid the Deathworlders who smile as they die and fight like the universe itself is trying to kill them. The Valani had called for help and received salvation from creatures they couldn't understand. But perhaps in a galaxy full of monsters, that was exactly what they needed. Captain Lee Jisoo pressed her face against the cold metal of the observation window. Stars stretched endlessly before her, but she wasn't looking at their beauty. Her dark eyes focused on something far more dangerous floating in the black space. Ahead, the Veltar trading station looked like a giant crystal flower blooming in the void. Ships moved around it like busy insects, loading and unloading cargo that kept the galaxy's economy running. The aliens had no idea they were being watched. "Captain, we're getting more signals," said Dr. Park Minho from his station. His fingers danced over the control panel, pulling in alien communications from across space. The fear in their voices is getting worse. Jisoo walked over to him. Her ship, the Shadow's Edge, had been watching this station for 3 weeks now. Hidden in the dark matter clouds that most aliens couldn't detect, they listened to the galaxy's secrets. "What are they saying this time?" she asked. Park's face went pale as he translated the alien words. "They're talking about the Devourers again. More ships have gone missing near the galactic core. The Veltar Council is calling emergency meetings. The Devourers." Even humans whispered that name with fear, though most aliens thought humans were just myths. For over 200 years, humanity had hidden in the dark spaces between stars. They watched, they learned, and they prepared for the day when the galaxy's greatest nightmare would return. "Send the recording to Commander Kim," Jisoo ordered. "She needs to hear this." On the main screen, alien ships continued their normal routines. The crew of a Nimbari gas hauler laughed as they shared stories over their communication system. Krexhai traders clicked and buzzed as they argued over prices. None of them knew that death was coming from the galactic core, eating everything in its path. Jisoo had been born on a hidden human colony called New Sol, built inside a hollow asteroid. Like all human children, she grew up learning about the 3 great alien races that ruled the galaxy. She also learned why humans stayed hidden. The Veltar were beings made of living crystal. They were beautiful and wise, but they moved slowly and hated violence. The Nimbari were clouds of gas that could change shape at will. They were clever traders, but had no real armies. The Krexhai looked like giant insects and loved to build things, but they feared anything stronger than themselves. All 3 races had enjoyed peace for thousands of years. They built beautiful cities, created amazing art, and explored the mysteries of science. But they had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten that the universe was not always peaceful. Humans remembered. Humans had never forgotten. "Captain," called Engineer Bae Suman from the engine room. "We're getting strange readings from the quantum sensors. Something big is moving in dark space, about 50 light-years from here." Jisoo felt ice form in her stomach. "How big?" "Bigger than anything in our records. It's heading toward the inner systems." Before Jisoo could respond, an alarm started, screaming throughout the ship. Dr. Park's hands flew over his controls as emergency signals flooded in from across the galaxy. "Captain, you need to hear this," Park said, his voice shaking. "It's a distress call from the human colony at Busan. Station." The message played through the ship's speakers. Static filled most of it, but they could hear the terror in the human voice. "This is Busan Station calling any human ship. They came out of nowhere. The Devourers. They're not ships. They're alive. Oh God, they're eating the station. Anyone who receives this message, run. Tell Admiral Choi that they've found us." The message ended in screams and static. Jisoo closed her eyes. Busan Station housed 50,000 humans. Now it was gone. "How many colonies have we lost?" she asked quietly. Park checked his records. 17 colonies have gone silent in the past month, all of them in the Outer Rim. 17 colonies, hundreds of thousands of humans, dead or worse. The Devourers had found them despite all their hiding, all their careful planning. "Set course for Admiral Choi's command ship," Jisoo ordered. "Maximum speed." As the Shadow's Edge turned away from the alien station, Jisoo took one last look at the peaceful scene outside. The aliens continued their daily lives, unaware that their galaxy was already under attack. Soon they would learn what humanity had always known. Peace was only possible when you were strong enough to defend it. The ship jumped into hyperspace, leaving the aliens alone with their false sense of security. 3 days later, Jisoo stood in the war room of Admiral Choi Dae-hyun's flagship. The admiral was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice still carried the authority of someone who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. "The situation is worse than we thought," Admiral Choi said to the gathered. "Captains, our scouts report that the main Devourer fleet is still months away, but their advanced scouts are already here. They're testing our defenses, learning our locations." The holographic display showed the galaxy with red dots marking where human colonies used to be. Too many red dots. "Sir," said Commander Kim Yuna, "our hidden fleets are ready. We have enough firepower to glass a dozen star systems. But if we reveal ourselves now, if we don't reveal ourselves, there won't be a galaxy left to save," the Admiral replied. "The aliens can't fight these things. We've watched their weapons tests. Their strongest bombs barely scratch Devourer armor." Jisoo raised her hand. "What about the ancient sites, sir?" "Dr. Shin's research showed that our ancestors left warnings about the Devourers all over the galaxy." Admiral Choi nodded slowly. "Dr. Shin believes we're the descendants of the race that built those warnings. That's why we understand their technology, when the aliens can't even read the writing." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. They had always known humans were different, but this suggested they were different in ways that went back millions of years. "The decision is made," Admiral Choi announced. "Tomorrow we make first contact with the Galactic Council. After 3 centuries of hiding, humanity steps into the light." Jisoo felt her heart racing. Everything they had trained for, everything their parents and grandparents had prepared for, was about to begin. "And if they don't listen to us?" asked Commander Kim. Admiral Choi's eyes grew hard. "Then we save them whether they want to be saved or not. The Devourers won't give us a second chance." As the meeting ended, Jisoo looked out at the stars one more time. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn that the monsters hiding in the dark weren't always the ones to fear. Sometimes, the monsters in the dark were the only thing standing between civilization and total destruction. The age of human hiding was over. The age of human war was about to begin.